Moynihan and Deputy Dooley, I think, are sharing time.
That's right.
It's 15 minutes in total.
Yeah, thank you very much, Les Corla. And I welcome the opportunity to speak on this debate this evening. And I suppose, having been reared on a farm that was confined to quotas since 1983, and having been a full-time farmer for almost 8 years prior to coming in here in 1997 under the quota regime, I know at first hand the difficulties and I suppose the huge constraints that were put on many family farms over the last 32 years in relation to farming with the milk quota regime. And I suppose this day, or the 1st of April 2015, has been a day that many family farms that are linked in the breadth of the country have been looking for and have been eagerly awaiting in terms of expansion. And I think that there's a number of issues that we would want to deal with, in particular in relation to the as we go forward. And I think that whilst we welcome and under Food Harvest 2020, which Brendan Smith and the previous government brought in, they were setting the parameters in relation to the expansion of the food industry, particularly the dairy industry, as we came to the date when milk quotas would be abolished. But I think that and we have seen huge investment both at co-op level and at milk processing level and at farm level. And I think I had a most interesting conversation with an excellent dairy farmer who confessed to be a supporter of the party opposite when I met him in Mallow yesterday afternoon. But we had a huge discussion in relation to milk and milk policy and the issues that are surrounding people going into, particularly new people who are going into milk, as opposed to the farmers that are already in milk. But there's a number of issues that came about, and I think that the Minister alluded to it there in one comment that he made. When you're milking 70 cows and you go to 90 cows, and then obviously the agenda is to get more money out of it. But there are many issues that need to be teased, and I look at the advice that Teagasc are giving in relation to it, and many of the sound advices that Teagasc are giving. But I think that also that the cost of production, whilst that there is going to be a massive expansion, but we can't have expansion just for expansion's sake, particularly on the family farms. We want to make sure that the farmers are completely equipped with the best possible information to make sure that they're getting the most amount of milk out of the number of cows. And farmers constantly say to me, some farmers would say, some farmer is farming, the number of cows are important to him, but it is the productivity on those cows, the productivity going into whoever the milk processor are. And I think that there needs to be an awful lot more work done in relation to some farmers that are expanding maybe 50%, and in some instances maybe 60 or 70%, and borrowing enormous sums of money at 5 and 6%, and will spend a generation trying to work for the bank to pay off the loans. I think that there needs to be a whole lot of thought put into that. There also is in relation to some of the contracts or some of the systems that some of the milk processors are talking about, giving a particular guarantee for a price over a number of years. And I've had many discussions with dairy farmers over the while. And whilst we go into 2015, coming on a very, very successful milk price year in 2014, and the volatility that was perceived to be in the marketplace, which is somewhat abated over the last while, but that has been coming into it. And my concern would be that to make sure that the farmers are given the best possible advice. I know that you're looking into a crystal ball, whether you're Teagasc or the Department of Agriculture or whatever, looking into a crystal ball in relation to it. But I think it's important that they get the best possible advice when they are going into a contract for milk. And I think that I suppose the price volatility that we've seen this year over the last couple of months, and I think back to 2006, just at the very start of 2006, the Progressive Farmers Conference in 2006 had probably one of the leading farming meetings that take place during the January period, during the quiet period on dairy farms, and they were looking at the price volatility during 2006 and predicting an almost collapse in that price. And as it turned out, know, it was almost the direct opposite that took place. And I kept saying to farmers at the earlier part, look, let's see what's going to happen over the next while. But I think that the point I'm making is that, you know, I think that we have to, you know, to have better research in relation to price volatility. I know this is not an accurate science, but I think that this, you know, everybody going the one way saying Jesus is going to collapse down to 24, 25 or 26 cent, and people saying I can't produce it at that price. We Yeah, well, I think that there needs to be more research into it. You know, these things don't happen overnight. I know we're in a global market, and what's happening in the United States or what's happening in China, it needs to be looked at. But I think that the price volatility, and you know, 6 weeks ago when I was looking and discussing it with other people in relation to price volatility, I was saying maybe that it's time to make sure that there is a floor price put into milk, because many farmers that would have borrowed money, young farmers and farmers that have been farming for 20 years, that have been using the opportunity to I suppose to something that they hadn't been able to do for 20 years, to produce more milk, always the holy grail, to produce as much milk as is humanly possible, and they're saying then they're slowing down on this. But I think maybe that needs to be looked at in relation to prices. And I suppose as we go forward in, you know, our emerging markets, the markets that we've been looking at, the emerging markets that have been looked at under Food Harvest 2020 and continue to be looked at in the post-quota landscape, to ensure that we have the best possible security in those markets, because I believe that we are producing one of the best products in the world, and that is on the backs of farmers that have taken enormous regulation over the last 20 years. And I look back to 1996 when the farmers in my part of the country were drying off cows in August and September because of non-availability, and small family farms not having any income for months at a time. And I think that we have the dairy industry and the food industry in particular at farm gate, and we should acknowledge it in every sense of the word, because these farmers have taken enormous regulation, and they have, by and large, to almost to a minute of a percent, they have ponied up to these regulations, and they have done the groundwork and the investment. They've done the groundwork at farm gate level. They've done the investment at farm gate level in terms of upgrading their facilities, of spending huge amounts of money in whether it is slurry storage facilities or whether it is dairy equipment, and they have put massive money into getting their systems right. We have, I believe, one of the best products in the world, and I think that we have to force everybody that's buying milk from the farm gate, the processors that are buying milk, whether they're the cooperative movements, and you know, there has been a debate in relation to cooperative movements that were set up at the very start to protect farmers, and they're looking at huge profits. I think that there is an issue out there, but that's not for me to take. And have I 10 minutes or?
We'll get 7.5 each.
7.5. Okay, I think that it is vitally important that the point I'm making is that these farmers have ponied up to massive regulations. They have put enormous expenses to make sure that they have a product, and the companies that are buying it, whether they're the PLCs or whether they're the cooperative movements, that a fair and adequate price is given for milk product to the farm gate. And sometimes you look at the enormous profits that some of them are making on the backs of the farmers. I think that there are some challenges there. You mentioned as well in relation to the interest rate that's been charged on farm loans. I believe that it is, in terms of other interest rates that have been given out, and if farmers are coming to me constantly looking at 5%, 6% and 7% in relation to interest rates, that is penal. That is penal, what they are doing in terms of it. Now, I think that we have to look very seriously at it, and it's not about talking to them. I think we have to force the banks. We have to say it is not acceptable, because this is a growth industry. This is an industry that has been put under sound footing over generations by many, many farmers. And if you look at the advice that farmers have got in relation to bringing the solids in their milk, the quality of their cattle, the quality of what they have invested in it, and I think that is a credit to every single farmer out there, whether they're milking 20 cows or 200 cows or more than that. They have brought a product that we can be justifiably proud of. But we want to make sure that the challenges that a government and a state, or anything that the government and state can put in place, not to penalise penalise them whether they're milking 20 cows or 200 cows, that they're treated the very same and that they're given the same price per litre of milk as they were in whatever sector they're in, and also that the banks are treating them fairly, because they are not treating them fairly at the moment. There are many farmers that are going into expansion, and when there was volatility faced, they were being hauled in by their managers or by their people, their liaison people over the last while in January. I saw myself in relation to a very, very successful dairy farmer who has given his life, and his family have given their life to build up a massive business, and when they wanted to transfer loans from intergenerational loans because the family was being taken over, that is not happening. And the banks were not, there was a very competitive rate given, and they were not pawning up to it. The banks were not doing what is said on the tin, and I think that we in this House, whether we're in the opposition or whether we're in the government at the benches opposite, we should be facing them down and saying it is not acceptable, because there are many farmers out there that have massive opportunities and are prepared to work hard. You know, this time of the year, January, February, March, into April, they'd work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to make sure of it. And also, I would like to say, as I finish up, you know, there are many issues, there are many stress-related issues out on the farm gate at the moment, and there are many farmers feeling the pressure in it. And I think that we should be very careful as well to make sure that that every advice and help is available to farmers on all categories, because I do feel that what we seem to be getting from our farming communities is that they're very concerned about people. I think that we should be conscious of that as well as I speak in this debate. I thank you for the opportunity to speak in the debate. There's a couple of things just to wind up. I think that we must be stricter on the banks. We must force them more that what they are doing is wrong, and that we should challenge them more.
Thank you, David.
And we should also make sure that the dairy farmer who is working extremely hard is getting a fair price, whether it's from a PLC or a co-op, and that they are given due recognition for the mighty product that they have developed over the generations, and that there are many farmers that are looking forward to the 1st of April, but they have a super levy bill hanging over them, and I think that we should recognise that, and we should challenge the system in relation to that super levy bill, because I don't believe it should be paid in the first instance.
Thank you, David.